Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Monday, November 26th. It's been a few days. Good to see all your beautiful faces again. I've got some good topics to discuss with you here in this one. We're going to talk new Q, Space Force, Julian Assange and Wikileaks, and then a few other things. But first of all, I want to talk about Twitter censorship. So yesterday we had yet another person kicked off of Twitter, and that person was Liz Crokin. You can see here, account straight suspended. And here was the last tweet that she put out before her account was cut. She was talking about pedophilia and child sex trafficking, things that she talks about quite a bit, things that need to be talked about, so props to her for doing so. And she was talking about pedophilia and child sex trafficking in regards to Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation. So it's really no question. She probably pissed off some bigwig somewhere, and that's why she had her account canned. She is still posting on the internet, though. She's posting on Instagram, Facebook, and I think she recently started a Gab account as well. So I'm going to go ahead and link her accounts down below in the description of this video. Go follow her on them. We really need to stick together during these times of censorship that's just rampant everywhere. And now let's get into talking about Q. So we had 4 posts yesterday. We're going to begin with the first one, 2499. Q says, everything stated has a purpose. Think timing of the tweet above, that's Trump's tweet here that Q linked, we'll talk about that in a sec, versus the last drops regarding Maggie, a reporter from the New York Times, regarding Wikileaks, drops about Maggie, and then regarding Wikileaks attacks on Q. We'll also talk about that in a sec here. But first, let's discuss Trump's tweet, and that's this one here. So Q linking this tweet that says, Clinton Foundation donations dropped 42%, which shows that they illegally played the power game. Pay to play, absolutely. And that 42% is just over the last 1 year. It's been 90% over the last 3 years, 42% over just the last year. So because the Clinton Foundation can no longer play, nobody wants to pay. Quite obvious. Now let's move on to talking about Wikileaks attacks on Q. So yesterday, Wikileaks took to Twitter to put out a few tweets attacking Q and attacking the QAnon movement. This one retweeting Joe. Shout out to Joe. Storm is upon us. Joe tweeted about Julian Assange, saying that his indictment is important and necessary. Discovery brings it all down. Assange is the star witness against the deep state. So WikiLeaks retweeting Joe's tweet and trying to throw shade on the, quote, QAnon topic, calling it the QAnon network. I don't exactly know what the QAnon network means. Again, WikiLeaks here is just really muddying the waters, putting out a little bit of misinformation to sway people the wrong way. And in regards to WikiLeaks, I mean, there's been a huge change with that platform over the last couple of years. The WikiLeaks of 2016 that was putting out Podesta's emails and stuff like that, that was some hardcore stuff. But the WikiLeaks that we see now is much different than that WikiLeaks 2 years ago. And in my opinion, I think either WikiLeaks or the website has been compromised by some sort of faction of the deep state. We can actually reference a Q post from back in June. They made a drop that said, you may have the site, but we have the source. Very cryptic, but if you bring it in terms of WikiLeaks, it actually makes sense. You have the site, meaning could be the CIA or some other faction has compromised the WikiLeaks organization and the website, but Q saying we have the source, as in a white hat group close to Trump has connection to or even has Julian Assange themselves. So you have the site, we have the source. I think WikiLeaks is now deep state asset. Q then saying, do you believe in coincidences? Be extremely vigilant in December. Lots of stuff is about to hit, right? And there's all sorts of attacks regarding Q, but we're waiting for the testimony from Comey, from Lynch. We're waiting for that Julian Assange indictment. We're waiting for, I believe, even Hillary Clinton to testify regarding her emails. And then, of course, Huber testifying, which I believe is a public hearing now, on December 5th. A lot of stuff dropping even just that first week of December. So see something, say something, extreme panic in D.C., Q is saying, because lots of stuff is about to hit. And then this next post, 2500, talking about Corsi. So Dr. Jerome Corsi of InfoWars was an attempt to infiltrate Q. And in looking back earlier this year, when Jerome Corsi was pro-Q, and trying to decode Q, and then infamously flipped just magically. A lot of people flipped during that time in like April or May. It was like that, and a bunch of people just went anti-Q. It was pretty obvious to see that now that was an attempt to infiltrate, to subvert the message of Q from Jerome Corsi and from InfoWars. So with Mueller now coming down on Corsi, that's pretty interesting. You know, Mueller, that's another conversation. Don't really know where his motivations, his agenda is particularly at. You know, what angle his is. But Corsi plea deal, I think I even recently saw just now that Corsi is suing Mueller. So there's all this weird stuff going on there. But regardless, Corsi is a bad people who pretends to be good people. As Q posts right here, they're bad people who pretend to be good. Reread drops regarding the warnings. Be careful who you follow. There was a huge statement by Q, again, back in, what was that, April or May, that outed quite a bit of people. And Q's always been telling us, be careful who you follow. And then Q links a article from the Washington Post saying most of the people who have left the White House did not have a choice. Fake news, fake MAGA, transparency is the only way. And most of the people who have left the White House look to be moles or embedded enemies, as this Washington Post article references. Let's take a look at it. So this Washington Post article is talking about a new book by Trump advisors that say the president has embedded enemies. Absolutely. They're probably all over the frickin' place. Would not doubt that. So going back to Q's post here, most of the people who have left the White House did not have a choice, meaning that they were embedded enemies that were outed and then forced out. So I'm not going to go through the list of names who could be that, but I mean, just over the last couple of years, there's been so many people who have been pushed out and replaced in that Trump White House. Embedded enemies, wouldn't doubt it. Now the next post goes into talking about Whitaker. So Whitaker, new Attorney General, in conjunction with the Inspector General, approved the release of classified documents 1 through 4 regarding FISA as requested by the House Committee and as ordered by the President. When that FISA is going to be declassified is up for anyone's guess. Q says here, will the release occur prior to scheduled testimony? List advantages. Or will the release occur post-scheduled testimony? List advantages. If those testifying know that select classified documents will become public and they're self-incriminating, how might that alter or change their testimony? So in regards to Clinton, Comey, Lynch, everybody were waiting to testify, the deep staters, over the next couple weeks, they are now put on blast. They're put on notice because they have no idea when this FISA is going to be released. So if it's released before their testimony, well, crap, there's going to be a lot of stuff they're going to have to answer to, right? If the FISA gets released after their testimony, well, that's pretty much going to blow the door open for perjury charges. So it's just a guessing game now. Q and Trump are basically letting them hook themselves, bait and hook themselves. So Comey and Lynch are in a complete pickle here. And that's why Comey is calling for a public testimony. He wants to testify publicly. He does not want it behind closed doors, because if Comey's testimony was behind closed doors, then they could ask him about classified things, you see, and he would have to answer to them. Now that he's calling for a public testimony, they can't ask him about classified things with public hearings. That's the only reason that he's claiming to want public testimony. It's not for openness and transparency. It's actually, in fact, so Comey can hide more things, you see? So very interested to see when this FISA declassification is coming, but it is coming, and it's just all dependent on those bad actors and what they're going to do. So it's a massive, massive game in play here. And then this last post, 2502, says POTUS has the authority to secure the border due to national security threat. Man, those videos I'm seeing of all the migrants at the border are really making me grateful that I don't live anywhere close to the southern border right now. They are totally throwing rocks at Border Patrol and trying to break open the fence and claw their way. It's crazy stuff going on there. And those videos are completely destroying a lot of the deep state talking points about this migrant caravan. So for weeks now, deep state pundits have been trying to claim that, oh, they're good people, they're not going to be climbing the fence, they're not going to be trying to break through the fence, all this stuff, they're not going to be throwing rocks, they're peaceful. Well, just look at the videos. I mean, they're trying to claw their way through, they're throwing rocks at border security. It's just craziness. So it's pretty obvious that that caravan is not all it's cracked up to be in the media. And Q stating right here, border security equals national security. And in regards to national security, there's a lot of things that our military can do. Vested authority the Constitution grants to protect our national security. Q says, thank you, Mr. Soros. You're trying to take our country down, but it's giving us very ample excuse to do what's necessary to protect it. All right, so now a word from a sponsor of this channel, that sponsor in Noble Gold. Noble Gold helps you invest your money in gold and silver, but what they also do is have some awesome collectible coins. One of them is the Trump coin. You can get their 2020 Freedom coin in silver. It's an awesome coin. And they also have it in gold. I can't quite afford the one in gold, but the silver one's pretty dope too. They're both awesome. You can pick that up. And they also have collectible coins, rare coins now available. You can get a piece of history here. If you want to pick up a collectible coin or look at investing your money in precious metals, Noble Gold, check them out. All right, guys, so now let's talk Space Force. So right here, I found this in recent days. It says, despite Air Force concerns, Pentagon says the Space Force is affordable. So on November 15th, the Deputy Secretary of Defense, Patrick Shanahan, the #2 at the DoD, said that the cost for the Space Force would actually be in the single digits. Could be lower than $5 billion, even around $2 to $3 billion, not the $13 billion that the Air Force is trying to claim that the Space Force is going to cost. So this brings up an interesting fight for the Space Force. The Air Force, as per a leaked memo from the Air Force Secretary, said that the Space Force is going to cost $13 billion. And people were saying, oh my gosh, it's going to cost a lot of money. We shouldn't have the Space Force, right? I'm actually curious how that memo actually leaked, right? And then we have the Deputy Secretary of Defense, Patrick Shanahan, saying that the Space Force is actually going to be much, much cheaper than that, like 20% of the estimated Air Force cost of it. So this shows you that there are some elements in the Air Force that don't want to give up their Space Command. Why don't they want to give up their Space Command? Well, they don't want their shiny secret toys disclosed, their technologies disclosed, things like that, you see? So the Space Force is much more than what it seems, what a lot of people think it to be. It goes much deeper than that. It's about gaining access and disclosing many secretly held technologies and literally spacecraft that have already been built. So that's something I wanted to make note of. And speaking of space, this is interesting. Russia, their top space official, was joking that a proposed mission will, quote, verify the moon landings by the U.S. Now, moon landings, right? Huge topic. A lot of people out there thinking they're fake. Oh, the moon landings are completely fake. Me personally, looking into it based upon my research and discussions and things like that, I think the Apollo missions did land on the moon, but I don't think what NASA was telling us about those NASA missions are truthful. I'm not buying the official narrative, but I still believe that we did land on the moon. What I think happened is that the astronauts that landed on the moon encountered many things that they did not expect and that NASA wanted to keep covered up, such as seeing craft, seeing structures on the moon, being greeted by craft when the Apollo astronauts landed. Then they switched over to more secure communications, so why the fake moon landing stuff is put out there, muddy the waters, misinformed, disinformed. I still think we got to the moon, but I just don't think we were told about everything that occurred when those Apollo astronauts landed on the moon. And then we could talk about secret space program history. In the secret programs, they probably got to the moon far before Apollo did. I wouldn't be surprised if the Germans got to the moon back in the late 30s with the secret spacecraft that they were working on and the anti-gravity technologies, etc. So anyway, long topic. I won't go ranting on it, but I just thought this was funny and wanted to make a note of it. And then speaking of Julian Assange, this was that article that Joe was referencing when WikiLeaks retweeted them that I talked about earlier in this video. Julian Assange's indictment may cause trouble for Democrats. This was a news story that broke from the New York Post, and in reading it, this is amazing because it says, what if Assange's testimony, when it is forced, shows that the leaker was a disgruntled anti-Hillary Clinton Democrat who happened to be mysteriously murdered in a case that hasn't yet been solved? So this article basically says Seth Rich without actually saying Seth Rich in there, not opening up this author to attacks, but basically telling everybody, hey, Seth Rich was killed and his killing was ordered by top-level Democrats to cover things up, you know. So article painting Seth Rich without saying Seth Rich, and then saying that Julian Assange's indictment is actually going to cause a lot of trouble for, I don't want to say Democrats, we'll say the deep state here, which is absolutely, I would say, the case, right? So WikiLeaks, of course, like we mentioned, being that compromised source, trying to throw shade on all of it, blah, 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 but I'm excited for what discovery is going to bring us in regards to Julian Assange's case. All right, two more things I want to go through you guys with. I'll do it quickly. This one here, Donald Trump names hand-picked panel to supervise and investigate the intelligence community. So this panel is called the Presidential Intelligence Advisory Board. It's a dormant panel that was created by former President Dwight Eisenhower. Man, Dwight Eisenhower knew that the deep state was going to start infiltrating. So I think he set up a lot of things to help in the future get rid of that deep state, and this might be one of them. Anyway, this Presidential Intelligence Advisory Board was brought back to the surface. It was staffed, and it's not making a professor from Notre Dame very happy. This, quote, expert they're referencing here is saying the board can really do whatever the hell the president wants it to do. A University of Notre Dame professor is saying if you really had an agenda and were willing to pick reliable people, blah, blah, blah. He's just going on to saying that the president can basically do what he wants with this board, and that's actually a very good thing. You know, the intelligence community, so many rogue operators, bad actors in that intelligence community. So with now a panel set to investigate and oversee that intelligence community, I don't see how that could go wrong, right? I don't see how it could go wrong. But of course, anti-Trumpers are up in arms over it. They're not happy, but it's a very good thing. And I'm interested to see what will come of this. That Notre Dame professor was trying to claim that I don't see Donald Trump doing really anything too serious with this panel, but my thought is, you know, why would he resurrect it if there wasn't anything serious to come of it? Trump wouldn't do that. So I think this panel is redone, recreated for a very specific reason. And now, very last thing I want to discuss with you guys is that New York State Senator Jose Peralta, who died on Thanksgiving Eve. So this New York State Senator, he died from septic shock. That's the official explanation for his death. And septic shock is basically inflammatory death. So your body goes into a state of inflammation that it can't handle, and then you die. Essentially what septic shock is. Now, here's the interesting thing. See, the inflammation can lead to organ damage and failure, a dangerous condition known as septic shock. Now, here's the interesting thing. Jose Peralta was spearheading a flu shot clinic in New York City just days before his death. A flu shot clinic, right? What's the fallout from a flu shot? Well, your body can get surely inflamed as heck. Your nervous system can get inflamed. Encephalitis, which is swelling of the brain, happens with literally every shot you get. Not only that, but it can make the rest of your body, your nervous system, and your immune system inflame as well. So, are you seeing what I'm gathering at here? Was Jose Peralta dead because of a flu shot? Maybe. Maybe. Don't know. Can't be sure of that. But I would say the dots definitely connect there. He died of septic shock, overinflammation. He led a flu shot clinic days beforehand. Did he get a flu shot? Did he die of a flu shot? Maybe. So, reject the poison, guys. Be very careful with what you're doing with your body. A lot of doctors out there are just wholly unaware, unfortunately unaware, and they don't have your best interest at heart or at mind. So that's all I wanted to discuss with you guys in this one. Thank you so much for supporting. Make sure you go follow me on all my other accounts, Instagram, Facebook, etc., just in case they ban me on Twitter or YouTube or whatever the case. And thank all of you for joining on Patreon as well. I have another live chat and exclusive giveaway coming up on Patreon for all of you there. So thank you guys. Be talking to you very soon. Done.